Hi guys, so I find Boris Johnson an interesting individual. Now, he has two personas. He presents himself in one way as a bit of a clown. He ruffles his hair and he acts like a buffoon. And in a sense, he's able to redirect criticism away from him by doing that. The public look at him when he acts like an idiot and they say, well, that's just Boris. Now, this is very useful because he's allowed to do things that normal politicians wouldn't get away with. The other side of Boris Johnson, in a sense, I think is a bit more Machiavellian. He's able to play both sides and convince them that he's on their side. Now, here is an example of this. I want you to hear what he had to say. He was in County Fermanagh, where he was commemorating the 100th anniversary of Northern Ireland's foundation, and he was visiting a laboratory in County Fermanagh, which is the constituency of Arlene Foster. Arlene Foster being the First Minister of Northern Ireland and the leader of the DUP. He was basically blowing smoke up her behind. I know, sorry for the mental image, but it will become a bit clearer in a moment.
We think it's lawful, and indeed we think it's right in view of the impact on the peace process and the Good Friday Agreement.
So he's talking here about the protocol. So the protocol is legal and it's right in respect to the peace process.
And the need to have consent from both communities.
So the need to have consent from both communities. Now, what he's talking here about consent is two different things, because consent has two different meanings to two different parts of Northern Ireland. I'm not talking about the two different communities. In the protocol, consent refers to the Northern Ireland Assembly. If the Northern Ireland Assembly consent to maintaining the status quo in 4 years' time, then it will be maintained. But what the Unionists want is not, they want their consent to any changes or any rules or any aspects of the protocol. It's not so much they want they want their opinion to count, even if they don't have a majority, because the demographics in Northern Ireland are changing, and the Unionist power base is getting smaller and smaller, and they're afraid that their power will disappear. So they want to push the idea of, well, the Unionist community, even if it's in a minority, it must always be consented. But what Boris Johnson here is doing, I think, is he's saying, yes, we're going to respect consent, but he's not talking about the Unionist consent.
I think the most important thing about the protocol is that it should guarantee the peace process and the Good Friday Agreement, which we all believe in, and everybody and Ireland and the UK and Northern Ireland has worked so hard to achieve.
So he's not telling us anything new here. He's just repeating the old rhetoric of, yes, we're going to maintain the Good Friday Agreement, we're going to respect it. I don't think Boris Johnson wants to harm the Good Friday Agreement, because it would have serious consequences for the UK, because there would be no trade deal with the United States. And Boris Johnson knows that. But he has to keep a sort of pressure on the EU. He has to seem to be putting pressure on the EU. And in order to do so, he has to keep the Unionists on his side. It's not that he needs them politically in the House of Commons, but he knows that he can't be seen as being weak. He has to be seen as a unionist looking out for the union. This is not about him caring about the union. I don't think he gives a crap about the union, but he has to appear to be caring about the union.
And there's got to be a balance and symmetry in that. And what we want to ensure is that the protocol upholds the wishes of all communities, of both communities, and has.
But it will through the Assembly. See, once again, and I think Boris Johnson knows that, but he's pretending, well, not even pretending, he's projecting the idea that both sides of the community, both communities must be respected. And in a sense, they will, if they're represented in, they'll be represented according to their numbers in the Northern Ireland Assembly. If the Catholic population increases to an extent that it's greater than the Protestant population, then that will be represented in the Northern Ireland Assembly. That's what the Unionist community is worried about. That's why they want to push the idea that the Unionist community must always be consented when it comes to any changes, or even the fact of maintaining the status quo. And Boris Johnson is sort of dodging that by saying, yes, we're going to maintain the protocol and we're going to maintain consent.
As the consent of both. So there's got to be an east-west consent to what's going on, as well as north-south. So that's what...
The east-west aspect of the protocol, it depends on the Assembly. I know Boris Johnson is trying to, once again, blow some smoke, where this is for the Unionists. He's trying to say, look, don't worry, Unionists, we will maintain the East-West relationship and the North-South relationship. They're both equally important. He knows that they're different. They're not the same. I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm just saying they are different. But it depends on the Northern Ireland Assembly.
What we're doing, we're just trying to make sure that that's built into it.
So we're just trying to make sure that that's built into it. Okay, so the language at the end doesn't really mean anything. But Boris Johnson knows that this is a difficult situation. And I think it's interesting that he went to County Fermanagh during the centenary of Northern Ireland, Northern Ireland's 100th birthday. It was a PR stunt. He went there to reinforce to the Unionist community, don't worry, we're on your side. And I think this is in an attempt to dampen some of the rhetoric, some of the fears in Northern Ireland. At the end of the day, the protocol, I believe, will remain. Boris Johnson doesn't want to tear up the protocol. I think some of this is in order to keep the Unionist community quiet. He doesn't want problems in Northern Ireland. He doesn't want to be held responsible for any problems in Northern Ireland either. And I think this is an attempt to say to the Unionist community, don't worry, we're looking out for you. But at the end of the day, the protocol will rule. We have agreed to the protocol. We've signed up to it. It's in British legislation. There's no going back to something else. So I think Boris Johnson, in a sense, is playing both sides. Not so much playing both sides, but he's playing the Unionists, convincing them, using the rhetoric that they want to hear, that they can sell back to their community and say, look, we spoke to Boris Johnson, he met with us, he came to our constituency, he cares about the union, he cares about consent, he's talking about the protocol, but he's going to look into it, he's going to see if we can, do something with it. Because the DUP have been demanding that the protocol is thrown away. And Boris Johnson has not moved even 1 inch towards throwing the protocol away. And his ministers are the same. The Northern Ireland Secretary has said on a number of occasions the protocol is what we have to work with, and we'll of course maintain trade with Northern Ireland. Nothing is going to change, when in reality it will. I think if I was a unionist, I wouldn't be too happy. But most of the unionists voted for this. So they're getting the best deal, in a sense, that's possible, considering Brexit. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot. I want to say a big thank you to all of my patrons. You ensure that this channel continues to exist. I'm eternally grateful for all of your support. If you join Patreon, you will receive instant access to our Discord server, where we have both audio and video chats. You can chat with me and other patrons, where we discuss important and non-important issues. Becoming a patron per month costs about the same as a large coffee, so why not check it out?